I am one of those people who are intimidated by the carry permit application process. I've been shooting for 8 years. I've been shooting competitively for 5 years. I shoot probably 7,000 rounds a year at least. I shoot a lot. About 5 years ago, I started looking into getting a carry permit, and I found out that the chief in my town required you to get a psych eval at URI, which in fact didn't exist, so it was impossible to get. And he knew it didn't exist, and he didn't care. So the answer was, my chief didn't issue, so that wasn't an option for me. Then I got a new chief, and he testified at a town hearing that he only approved 50% of the applicants. Now for a process defined by statute, which is you need a proper reason for a suitable person, I can't imagine that half of the applicants were unsuitable or didn't have a proper reason. That's impossible. We heard testimony here that said the AG issues 98%. Well, the town chief said he issued 50%. That's just not possible. Because I shoot a lot and I go to other states to shoot, I really don't want to get that denial because I have permits in other states. I actually have 4 non-resident permits in other states. And the process to get those permits was pretty trivial, I have to say. You fill out an application. If you're a suitable person, you mail in the money, you get the permit. They have a defined process. You either meet the requirements or you don't meet the requirements. 114711 is supposed to be like that, but the way it's applied, it's not like that. So you don't know if you're going to get that or not, and that's what's intimidating about it. I know that many people have had problems getting permits from both towns and AGs because I talk to them every week for the last 8 years. And every single person I've talked to has had multiple issues. Every single person that I've talked to that went to the AG got a denial letter. Every single one. And they had to go down with an attorney. How much does an attorney cost? Right? They're putting these roadblocks in place, monetary roadblocks, to deny people their rights. And that's wrong. And that's why this concealed carry bill is a good idea, because it levels the playing field for everybody, not just the people with the means, the wealth and the means to do it, but everybody. The Attorney General permit is a May issue permit. In the Mosby Devine case, the Supreme Court ruled that the applicant had a proper reason and was a suitable person. But the Attorney General could still deny because it was May issue, and it was constitutional because 114711 is a shall issue statute. Okay, except for the fact that the reality is many chiefs in the state simply will not issue. You go there to ask for an application, and they say we don't do that. We go to the Attorney General. That's what they want you to believe, that they don't issue a permit. If you try hard enough, they might give you an application. Some towns you will never get an application from, like Newport. Okay. Also, the process, because there's no standardized process, the chiefs feel like they can ask any question they want of you. Right? How much money do you make? How much money do you have in the bank? Right? The whole HIPAA thing. Right? That's really not any of their business. All they need to know is, do I have a criminal record? Am I suitably trained? And in Rhode Island, actually doesn't have a training requirement, just has an accuracy requirement. And as an aside, being able to shoot a bullseye target at 75 feet is really not a good standard for a concealed carry permit holder. There should be a different standard. Regarding the magazine capacity, we've talked about mass shooters. They typically show up with a lot of magazines. I think Columbine, he had 13 10-round magazines. One of the shooters did. I think at Virginia Tech, one of the shooter had 17 magazines. Most of them were 10 rounds. A few of them were 15 rounds. When you're the only guy with a gun and everyone is hiding behind furniture, it doesn't really matter how long it takes to change a magazine because nobody's going to try to stop you, right? But when you're at home at night in bed and people start kicking in your door and you reach for the bedside gun, guess how many magazines you have? One, right? I'm not wearing a belt with spare magazines on my belt while I'm sleeping at night. I'm wearing underwear, right? So I reach for that gun. I'm going to defend my life, my family. All I have is the one magazine that's in the gun. If you're going to arbitrarily limit me to 10 rounds, then you might be responsible for my death. That's all I have.
Thank you. Representative Vella Wilkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to go back to the statement that you had made with regards to holding CCW permits in 4 states.
Yes.
So if you were to apply for a concealed carry here, let's say for argument's sake through the AG's office, and you were rejected, would you be required, when you had your renewal for the CCW in those 4 states, to identify that you have, since your last renewal, been rejected?
Yes.
And what impact, if any, would that have on your ability to renew?
I suspect that it would make the process take much longer if they eventually decided to approve, but they might just arbitrarily say, well, you've been denied here, so we deny you here.
They could deny you that's without a reason.
Exactly. So even if they wanted to do due diligence, how long would it take and how much documentation would I have to provide? Would I need a lawyer every single time for every one of these states? Also, since we bring it up, I travel to Connecticut a lot, which is why I have a Connecticut permit. I would like to travel to Massachusetts to shoot competitions, except I don't have a Massachusetts permit. The reason I don't have a Massachusetts permit is I don't have a Rhode Island permit. Massachusetts will only issue a permit if you have a permit in your home state.
Right.
So the fact that I am intimidated to get one in Rhode Island means that I also can't get one in Massachusetts, which severely curtails my activities.
Now, Mr. Price, the fact that the AG through Rhode Island State Law 114711 is permissive, they may authorize the issuance of a CCW, would also mean that they could put restrictions on that permit to carry. Could you talk about that for a minute or two, please?
Sure. Even though the statute doesn't specify that they can limit you, but they do anyways, and there have been many cases where, first of all, they will automatically deny you, and then they'll make you show up with an attorney and plead your case, and oftentimes they'll give it to you for, first they'll say, we'll give it to you for range purposes, so you can go back and forth to the range. Well, you don't need a permit for that in Rhode Island. That's state law. I can do that anyways. Then they'll say, for work purposes, right? So if you're not doing anything related to work purposes, then you would be in violation. They would revoke your permit, and they would probably charge you with a crime.
Now, I've been told by individuals in various municipalities throughout Rhode Island that they've had situations where they've gone through the interview and they've had to answer a question, even if it was recommended by work. They were asked, is this something that you can do so that you're not the one doing the cash drop, therefore not needing the weapon? And based on that, they would reject. Or if the company says they prefer it but don't require that you're armed, that's also a basis for rejection. Have you heard things of that nature as well? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Can I add a few things I've just thought of?
That's not up to me. That's up to the chairman.
Well, we keep asking him questions, so.
Okay. So on the point, Rhode Island law says I can go from my house to the range or from my house to a place of business, right? It says I can go from the gun store to my home to bring a gun home, or I can go to the gun store for the purpose of a sale. It doesn't say is if I'm driving to the range and I realize I'm out of gas and I want to stop to get some and I've got a gun in my trunk, am I breaking the law? If I go to the gun store for the purpose of a sale and I don't make the sale and I'm bringing the gun back to my house, am I breaking the law? If my firearm is broken and I need to send it to the manufacturer for servicing, federal law allows me to take it to a shipper like UPS or FedEx and ship it to the manufacturer. But Rhode Island law doesn't let me actually go to that shipper. Okay, so there are many, many things in Rhode Island law that if you don't have that carry permit, you could be violating the law and not even really realize it. So for me, having a carry permit is about protecting myself from inadvertent breaking the law and subsequent incarceration and loss of gun rights. Also, by the way, it's been stated before, in Massachusetts, you're not allowed to have ammunition unless you have an FID or a carry permit. And in Massachusetts, components of ammunition are considered ammunition. So if you have a spent shell case on your person or even in your vehicle, and you drove into Massachusetts and you weren't driving through, in which case you'd be protected by federal law, but you're actually driving into Massachusetts for some purpose, and they found that one spent shell casing, and you didn't have, and you can't get an FID if you're not a resident. So the only thing you could get would be a permit if you had the resident state issued permit. You could be incarcerated for a year for just having one spent shell casing. So again, I'm a very cautious person, and the only thing I trust is a permit issued by the state that I'm actually in. I don't even trust reciprocity because I think that the police officers don't understand what's reciprocal. For example, Massachusetts law says that you can travel to a competition in Massachusetts if you have a permit issued by a state that's at least as restrictive as Massachusetts in terms of issuing, as far as drug convictions and others. But they conveniently don't list any of those permits. So it's incumbent on me to find out which permits would be valid for that purpose, and it's really beyond my ability to do that. Okay.
Thank you, Wade. Any further questions?